Well, let's take this moment to say the Fringe prayer. Father Creator, Mother Earth, Great Spirit, for the next 10 days, please don't let it rain. And if you do let it rain on the southerly part of the city known as the Exhibition.
Hello and welcome to the CFCR Fringe Flyer for Thursday, August 2nd. I'm Ishmael Darrow, and you just heard the MC for last night's Fringe Preview Night, giving a mocking prayer. The Fringe Preview is the unofficial kickoff, and 36 of the 38 shows that are taking place over the next few days, they all put on 2-minute previews, little snippets. Sometimes they made sense, sometimes they seemed very out of context, but they were all very interesting, and it was a packed house at the Broadway Theatre, and hopefully, if the turnout last night is any indication, all those shows will also get lots and lots of people going out to them. The Potash Corp Fringe Theatre Festival runs from August 2nd to 11th, and each weekday on The Buzz, we're going to take half an hour to show you the sights and sounds, talk to many of the performers and directors and everybody else involved in the Fringe. We're going to try to tackle all aspects of this festival, and you can follow the action at cfcr.ca, where these segments will also be posted if you can't listen to them during The Buzz. Earlier today, I had a chance to talk to Bob Wyma. This is his 10th year as festival producer, and he's also the executive director of the 25th Street Theatre. I headed down to Fringe headquarters on Broadway, and we talked about some of the changes that have taken place over the last few years and what we can expect to see this year.
Thanks for joining me on the Fringe Flyer, first of all.
Oh, you're welcome.
Now, years ago, when I first started coming to the Fringe, I thought of it as a kid as a street festival. And a couple of years ago, I think it was, the note came down that, no, we really want to focus on theater. And this year, you're saying that we've finally gotten over it. It's going to be a theater and a street festival. What sort of conflict is there, and what kind of discussions have you guys had about that?
Well, the interesting part for us is we sat down at the end of last year's festival and had stakeholders in a session where we said, what do you think the festival is? And this is the merchants that are on the street selling goods, and we had theater artists there, and we sat down and we asked people, what do you think the festival is? And instead of it being an either or, it became readily apparent to us that it is an and that they're complementary and synergistic. So we decided to call it a theater and a street festival this year to bring those two together finally. And, the goal at the end of the day is to translate the outdoor audience into indoor audience, but you need those two to be successful at doing that. So that's our framework that we're in this year.
Now, in addition to that, I know that musical buskers are out this year. The beer tent went, I think, last year.
Yeah.
Is there a sort of a general effort to make the experience just a little less sort of wild, like the Fringe, I think, used to be in some people's memories?
Yeah, I think that for us, people have an expectation on stage in our environments that it's shaped properly. And we've never really found that right place for music to find its footprint in the festival. And I'll say that this year is an experiment in Fringe life, like many experiments are. And music was not included in the programming this year in an effort to try to develop the craft end of things on the street. And I think in a couple of days we'll know whether that's successful or not.
And of course, there's way more food vendors as well.
There's lots of small food vendors. I think we're at 15 vendors this year, which is double what we had last year. I'm not sure what caused that to happen. I mean, I think sometimes you do something and people see the beer tent is gone, for example, and there's this space. And we're just so happy that these food vendors have chosen the festival this year, and with some good weather, we're all going to have a lot of fun on site.
Well, as somebody who drops about $100 on samosas every year, I don't blame you for getting more street food.
Yeah, and I think festival life has to include a great offering of interesting and eclectic food, and I think the vendors that I've seen on the list this year are going to give the crowds something interesting to eat on site.
Last night at the Fringe preview, the MC, he gave the joking prayer for the Fringe that if it does rain, please let it rain on the exhibition. But in addition to the exhibition, you also have the Olympics. Is there, you've been running things for a while, is there a lot of competition for the Fringe, or is it its own unique niche that people come out to no matter what?
I think the festival has kind of landed in people's hearts. I think that it is an attraction, a summer attraction that has a very dedicated audience, and I think that with all due credit to the Olympics and what goes on at the exhibition, we find that people will take in those things that they're going to take in, whether that's cottage life, watching TV, or going to the exhibition, and then they'll come down to the festival to have the fun part of their life. So we've seen crowds consistently grow year over year, so I don't think that even the exhibition overlapping with us is an issue for us at all. In fact, it brings people to the site.
Now, I've been here for only about 10 minutes, and you are the busiest man in town right now, but are you going to have time to see any plays?
Well, on the sly, last year I managed to get in to see 13 shows. Now, I might be that guy that's in on an early show, but I like to sit in the worst house seat of all so that I can understand if you come in late and you get that back corner seat, what is your sight line for the show? So, I will get into double digits for sure this year because, it's hard to build this platform and then not drink from the cup and enjoy some of the live theater on stage.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Peter Popoff here, Chief Engineer of the Prostate Propulsion System. We have gotten word that tonight is going to be an official ejaculation, so strap in, strap on, and strap out to be ready for launch. My brother Randy will be operating the erection tensioning winch this evening. Say hello to the good people, Randy. A very warm hello to all the little sperm out there in the scrotum tonight. We really are looking forward to a successful launch. And don't worry about the shaft.
That's just a small taste of Gametes and Gonads, which is Star Wars Meets Your Genitals, a one-man show by Jeff Laird, which plays at the Oskayak Gym. Jeff Laird, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much.
Now, what exactly, to give a brief intro to Gametes and Gonads, it's sort of a war between sperm and eggs,
Yes.
and there's sci-fi involved.
Yes, it's a sort of like a sci-fi look at the battle going on in your reproductive system. So my tagline is that it's Star Wars meets your genitals. There's a lot of sort of Star Wars references and jokes and sort of Star Trek type of stuff in there as well. So it's basically the whole thing played out with spaceships and robots and that sort of stuff.
Now, I realize you're mixing a whole bunch of different movies, but since you do use Star Wars in your marketing, in Star Wars there's good guys and bad guys. Are you saying that the eggs or the sperm are the rebels or the Empire?
Well, in mine, I do. I start off with both. Like I do the perception of both sides,
Mm-hmm.
and either side thinks that the other one is the bad guys, right? So from when I'm dealing with the sperm, the eggs are the bad guys. When I'm dealing with the eggs, the sperm are the bad guys, which is, evil's kind of relative, I think.
I suppose. So far from looking at love and human relationships in a more positive light, it's really a war to you.
Yes, a terrible, terrible war that has 500 million casualties pretty much every day.
So it's a one-man show. You act in it, and you don't really have a lot of props. You do all the sound effects on your own, and you've written it as well. So this really is your baby. So you're going to have to take credit for how exactly this came about. How did you come up with this idea?
Actually, I found there was a website that I found for a foundation called the True Right to Life Movement. And basically, they're a group of people or just one person who did a lot of writing, I'm not really sure. But they believe that each sperm and each egg are like legitimate, actual, fully realized beings.
Mm-hmm.
And all sorts of stuff that I'm not going to go into right now, but basically I read that and then I started thinking about what a horrible, horrible life just every day would be if you actually had like the consciousness to know that like this month might be the month that you're going down, and
Mm-hmm.
if you were an egg, or that basically once every 3 days, regardless of whether or not a man ejaculates, all of the sperm just die. So like it'd be like once every 3 days, 500 million of your fellow friends and you are all dead, and then more of them just come, and they know that like everyone's going to be dead in the next 3 days, right? So
it's a near daily genocide happening, if that group is to be believed.
Yes, and also you get shot off to try to get to an egg, and only one of you can ever get in, and so even if one gets in, still 500 million essentially die.
Okay, so it sounds like the inspiration was, it's not something you believe in very deeply, but it was just a crazy enough idea that it led you to write this.
Yeah, it was, that's right. It was something that I found to be quite absurd, and then the more I thought about it, the more I found it funny, and then the more I found it funny, the more I wanted to write a show about it so that everyone else could also find it funny.
What has been the reaction so far? This is your second year touring
Yes.
Gametes and Gonads. What kind of audience reaction do you get?
The audiences and everybody that comes has generally really, really liked it. Really loved it. It's been very positive. I've had people coming up and telling me how very funny it is and all that. But it is. I think that the subject matter kind of scares a few people away, and they don't come and see it because I think it's going to be a show just filled with, I don't know, ejaculation or something. It's so some people I think are a little afraid to come and check it out. But generally, the people that do find it to be surprisingly smart humor in a really kind of dumb subject matter, I guess.
Well, I was even a little anxious booking you for this interview because I thought, are we going to be able to air anything that we record? But I'm sure we're fine so far. But would you say this is maybe not the most family-friendly show? This is more of like an adult?
This is, definitely an adult. I think I have under 13 not admitted. There is a fair amount of coarse language, and the subject matter is something that younger people may not be as interested in, or may be interested in, but their parents certainly.
Exactly. And there are always children's shows at the Fringe to check out. But if you're interested, do see Gametes and Gonads. Now, you're from Victoria originally, and you come from an acting family. So you must have grown up around theater your whole life.
Yeah, I think the first time I went to theater, I was like 3 years old, something like that, and I've been going to see plays my entire life, and I've been involved with the theater community basically my entire life, and acting in school plays and that sort of stuff since I was like 6 or 7.
And your father's an actor as well?
Yes, he's an actor. He's an actor and a director, and he owns the Story Theatre Company, which is based out of Victoria, and I think has probably toured through Saskatoon once or twice in the past 30 years or so. And he's sort of a theater guy about town. He's on the board of directors for the Blue Bridge Theatre Company that's in its 4th year or something out there, and yeah.
Now, I have two visions in my head. One is that your father's a Shakespearean actor who's horrified at your play, or that he's just as silly and easygoing, and maybe that runs in the family. He
helped to direct the play.
Okay.
So, yeah, he's done a number of adult shows outside of his children's company. They're all very, very silly. He did a Bawdy Tales of the Decameron and something called Victoria's Secrets that are sort of all sort of sex jokes and stuff from Victoria. Yeah, it's so he's very silly. Yes.
Oh, so he's on board. That's good to hear.
Yes, definitely. He helped me write some of the jokes for it. So yeah.
So far, you've been in town for a few days, and is this your first time in Saskatoon?
This is my first time in Saskatoon. Yes. It's my first time in pretty much every city that I'm doing this year, and I'm really excited every time to see, what the Fringe is going to be like, what the audience is going to be like, how the festival is, how it works, and I like that it's sort of a smaller one because I just came from Winnipeg and I'm going to Edmonton next, and they have like 160 shows in their festivals, and you can kind of get lost in amongst all of it, and it's hard to meet all of the people and get a really good solid community going with the audience, and that's one of the things that I like about the smaller festivals. So
and by comparison, 38 shows is a lot smaller.
It's a lot smaller. It's kind of like Victoria has a similar size. Yeah.
Something that I find intriguing is that a lot of performers do travel from fringe to fringe. Is there a bit of a family or almost like a caravan circus sort of a feel that comes out of it?
Definitely, yeah. There's a number of people that I've been in every fringe with since Ottawa, and some people that I was in fringes with last year and have been in, that were in Ottawa and were in Winnipeg, and I managed to get a ride down here with Howard Petrick, who's doing Breaking Rank, who was in Winnipeg, and it was just sort of like in every festival there is a sense of like, who's going to the next one? Can I get a ride with you? Or that sort of, yeah. And it is, the artists do really, especially the touring artists, create like a really solid community because we don't know anyone else in the town, really, when we first show up. We meet all the other people, but when we first show up, it's just sort of, who is from Winnipeg? Let's go find a pub, because we've got nowhere to go, and we don't know anyone, so...
Is part of doing a one-man show because it is easier to pick up and go to the next place, or was that a conscious decision for other reasons?
Part of the reason, is that it is for a touring show, and I mean, another reason why I don't have any props, costumes, set pieces really is just I can pretty much pick up and do it anywhere in any city if I need, I need about like 4 days notice to be able to catch a flight or something, and once I can get out there, I mean, it's just me and my suitcase, really.
Right, it's just you, but you do, how many characters do you do in Gametes and Gonads? Because you play a lot of sperm and a lot of tiny...
I've been saying in my marketing that I play about 500 million, but that's not really true.
That was Jeff Laird, star of Gametes and Gonads, which plays at the Oskayak Gym, and the first show is tonight at 10:15.
I'm here with Mikayla Dyke, and she is performing Dying Hard at the Fringe Theatre Festival. Can you tell me a little bit about your play?
Sure. My show is a verbatim theater piece, so it's real people's true stories in their own words. And these particular stories come from interviews with miners on the Burin Peninsula of Newfoundland. And they were miners at the Salt Cove Brook and Iron Springs mines. They were fluorspar mines. And in the 70s, kind of that whole population of men were dying out because of terrible working conditions at the mines. So they were amazing people with amazing lives. And what I do is I tell their stories in their own words in the show. There's 6 people whose stories I do, 4 men, 2 women, but it's just me.
And so what made you first hear about these plays, I guess, or these stories?
Okay, so it's a bit of a story. I found the book Dying Hard, which was put together by Elliot Leighton, who's an anthropologist who works at Memorial University, but is actually from Saskatchewan. He put together these interviews in a book called Dying Hard. And when I was here in Saskatoon 4 years ago with a different fringe show, I was dared by 2 performers who I respect very much to do a solo show. And when I kept thinking about what I wanted to do, I kept coming back to these stories because they're just astonishing stories. They've had amazing lives, these people. So I kept coming back to them, and after a while I was like, all right, I'm just going to go for it. I wrote Elliot Leighton an email asking him if he would be okay with me using them, and he said it was great. I did some research in the archives at Memorial University and put together the show from the book and the transcripts.
So he's from Saskatchewan?
Yeah.
And how did you hear about the book?
I found the book in a free box, like a box of free books in Toronto, which is where I live now. I'm born and raised in St. John's, Newfoundland, but I live in Toronto currently, and I was doing my master's. And my older brother had taken a course with Elliot Leighton, so the name popped out. And I said, oh, yeah, I'll take that book. I'll read it. I love books. I pick up books all the time, everywhere. Yeah. So, yeah. I
used to hang out at the U of A as well. They gave a lot of free books away, and I would check it pretty much daily.
Yeah, it's nice. In Toronto, it's actually really nice. In the spring, you find like just boxes of books hanging out on the sidewalk, and you can be like, oh, I'll take 2 of these,
Yeah. So this play is verbatim, as I understand. Yeah. And so were you ever tempted to sort of, adapt it to your own and make it more for theater, or was it just instantly you knew it should be preserved as is? Well,
yeah, I mean, reading the stories themselves, Newfoundland has a great oral history tradition. So the people's stories themselves, I think is what tempted Elliot Leighton just to publish them as interviews anyways, is that they are very eloquent. They're really, really phenomenal stories. They're amazing storytellers. I will say that I don't do everything exactly, like it is edited down, but we didn't add anything to it. We just took away. And so we took away things for clarity and for time. There's about 12 people in the book, and if I were to do all of them, it would take a week. So rather than have everyone sit there for a week or try and rush through everything, we did clip things out. But didn't alter, like, if it's a full sentence, then the full sentence is there. I don't think we even cut sentences in half. But no, not tempted at all. In fact, some people have asked me why I didn't write my own show based on it, and it just feels like it would be... It couldn't possibly be as good as what these people have said in their own words. They really knew how to talk, and they really knew... their stories are so amazing that it's hard to imagine somebody else trying to paraphrase it, I guess. Yeah.
And you said they were all miners, so were most of the stories about their mining, professional lives, or was it beyond that as well?
It's beyond that. I mean, they all do at some point during the play, because that is what the show is about these mines and these people who work there. They all discuss it at one point, all 6 people who I do. But 2 of them are wives as well, wives of the miners. But they also talk about their lives in general. That's what drew me to the stories originally, is that it is a sad thing that happened in history, but their lives are so full of amazing things. There was a guy who was a rum runner and an amateur boxer, and he served in the Merchant Marines. And actually, when I went down to St. Lawrence and performed this show down there, people told me he was made an honorary citizen of France for all the time he spent over in Saint-Pierre and Miquelon while he was playing soccer and running rum and stuff from between those islands in Newfoundland. But they talk about lots of different things. And that was part of the point when we were putting together the show, was to highlight the fact that what's sad about this isn't just what happened. It's not just nameless people dying. It's that people who had lives that were full and interesting and astonishing when you get to hear the whole scope of it, that they were real people. So yeah.
How did you select the 6 of the 12?
It was very difficult. Yeah. I did about 7 drafts of the script before I even brought it to my director. And by that point in time, I had aimed for 5, because I thought 5 people, I could give each of them enough time to learn about them and not run over about an hour, which is what I was aiming for the show. And then I ended up with 6 because I couldn't cut a final one. I was like, I just can't do it. So there are 6 people, and the show is structured in a way where, like, we start with it's thematically structured. Kind of the first person who you meet, he serves as an overture for the rest of the show. He talks about everything in that you're going to hear from the other characters, and then each of the other characters kind of fills that in on a bigger level. I have a master's in dramaturgy, so I was very conscious of trying to make sure that the play itself had a form that wasn't just 6 separate and totally unconnected stories. It does have a flow, and all of these characters kind of fit into that. And that's ultimately what helped me decide. I mean, there was a couple other people whose stories I was definitely interested in including, but couldn't for time. So.
And so being that it's a one-woman play, you obviously adapt these characters. And from what I saw last night at the preview night, it's, flavorful language and accents. And so how much time did you spend just developing these individual characters and how they sounded? And because it was written, right? So you had to create these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I did get a chance to listen to the tapes.
Okay.
So I did get to hear some of their voices. There's like one character who's got breathing problems. So him, I can't do exactly the way it's on the tape. Wouldn't make sense. And also because it's edited, there are obviously the inflections have to change, because otherwise, again, it wouldn't make sense. It would be like weird sentences. It would sound like when people edit together badly sound file, weird pauses and stuff. No, I spent about 3 months with my director working through it. My background is in physical comedy, and I do voices as like a thing. Yeah. So I brought to it my own knowledge of what these guys sounded like, and also who I know in Newfoundland and people who I've met. You can kind of... when I did the show in Winnipeg, I remember last year, people came up to me and were like, "Oh man, that first character, he reminds me of my grandfather," and that fourth character, "Oh, I know her, like she's totally this woman that I know." Everyone's got somebody that they can connect with these characters to, So I brought that to it, and then my director she's got a background in puppetry, and she's a phenomenal director, Dahlia Katz, and she helped build the physical side of things, and part of the voice is informed by the physical, and part of the physical is informed by what I was bringing to it anyway. So it was about 3 months of 3 or 4 times a week we'd meet and put together these characters. So
well, I know that I think anyway that the rest of Canada has this fascination with the Newfoundland accent, and I think that's part of the fun, is why I want it, part of it, and obviously the stories. And so I wondered if you might bring out a character. It's kind of putting you on the spot, but if we could hear a little bit of one of them.
Sure. Just give me a second.
Sure, yeah.
I'm going to make a silly face. You're going to be able to see it. Nobody else is going to be able to see it. I used to eat everything. Yeah. Anything I could pick up, I would eat that. It made no difference what it was. Capelin, knife, capelin, squid, all that kind of stuff. I often went down to the dock with the squid running ashore. Took up the live squid and threw him abroad. Threw him up and eat away them, same as having coke. Capelin, the very same thing. And any kind of insect, butterflies or them big flies. And I had took the guts out of his squid, 9 days old. You know what they were, and squatted up between 2 pieces of bread and butter, and eat away at it. Just for badness, that's all. And just for devilment.
Great. And for those of you, if you just tuned in, that was actually Mikayla Dyke performing one of her characters from Dying Hard. Yeah. So just one final question. Since there's that Saskatchewan connection, you've been here before to Saskatoon. Do you see any other connections kind of between these characters and Saskatchewan at all?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's an industrial place that I'm talking about, and I know Saskatchewan is a very industrial province as well. I don't think you guys have as much mining as we do, but you have
different mining.
Yeah, different
potash
mining
instead of fluorspar.
Potash instead of fluorspar, and I really hope that the conditions are better here than they were in Newfoundland in the 30s and 40s when they started that mine. I'm sure they are, but yeah, it's about living in an industrial community, and it's about what their lives were like in terms of that. So I'm sure if people from Saskatchewan come out, they're going to see uncles and brothers and aunts and cousins in these characters.
Great. Well, thank you, Mikaela, for your time. And again, that's Dying Hard. And where is it playing again?
It's playing at the Victoria School upstairs. And my first show is actually at 9:40 p.m. tonight.
So
it's a good rainy day, kind of come upstairs, cozy into a theater show.
Mm-hmm. That upstairs it does get nice and warm too. So if it's cold outside, it's a good day to go.
I've been assured that the AC is going to be on for when the hot days are on. So
yeah, good. Great. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. It's been great.
That was CFCR's Franny Rollick talking to Mikayla Dyke. And that's it for the Fringe Flyer for Thursday, August 2nd. Remember, you can follow the action at cfcr.ca, where these segments will be posted, and each weekday on The Buzz, the second half hour is devoted to the Fringe Flyer. Back to the studio.